I'm Ace. Good to have you here. Let me ask you something. A lead fills out your form at 9:10. At 9:12, the details are in your inbox. At 9:15, they're in a spreadsheet. By Friday, you remember the person's name, but not exactly what they asked for. And you're not even sure whether you replied. Well, nothing broke. Every tool worked. The business still lost momentum. That gap between working steps is what I call the interface tax. It's the hidden cost your business pays whenever work crosses from one tool, platform, person, or stage to another. Sometimes the tax is a copy and paste. Sometimes it's a missing detail. Sometimes it's 5 minutes spent searching for the current version of a file. And sometimes it's a decision you have to make again because the system never recorded the first one. Here's the strange part. Your individual tasks can be efficient while the whole business is slow. The form can be excellent. The email platform can be excellent. The project board, payment system, writing tool, and website can all be excellent. But if you're manually carrying context between them, you become the connection layer. You are the person remembering what happened, what matters, what comes next, and which version is real. And that is exhausting in a very specific way. You may not be doing difficult work. You're doing reasonable work over and over because the handoff around it is weak. Today I want to show you how to spot that friction, reduce it, and decide when automation is actually helpful. We'll use a simple sequence. Follow the value, establish what's true, and only then connect the repeatable pieces. Let's start with a small example. Imagine you publish practical articles to bring the right people to your website. The idea begins in a voice note. The keyword is in one document. The target reader is in a project card. The draft is in an AI chat. The call to action is in your memory. Then the article moves into your content management system, where the title changes one more time. The writing may not be the bottleneck. Reconstructing the assignment is. Before you write a sentence, you're asking, who is this for? What problem are we solving? Which search intent matters? What evidence do we need? What should the reader do next? If those answers don't travel with the draft, you rebuild the context every time. The business isn't just moving words. It's repeatedly rebuilding the reason those words exist. So take one outcome you deliver often, not your entire business. One outcome. A lead gets a useful reply. A reader joins your email list. A customer buys a digital product and receives the right files. Follow that outcome from the customer's first problem to the moment value arrives. Write down what really happens, not what your ideal process says should happen. Start with the form, then the email, then the spreadsheet. Then you review it, create a task, research the question, draft the reply, revise it, send it, and record what happened. Look at that chain. The actual reply might take 5 minutes. The coordination around it can take 20. Now mark every transition. Where did you switch tools? Where did you retype information? Where did you change a status? Where did you wait for approval? Where did you search for a missing link or wonder whether a task was still active? Those are not minor details. They are evidence. And don't just count clicks. Count context loss. A click is visible. Context loss is usually not. If a customer's goal disappears between the form and the task, you may spend more time interpreting the request than completing it. If the product version is unclear, delivery becomes a small investigation. If the content brief is scattered, the draft may be technically finished but strategically empty. Think about that for a moment. What information must survive every handoff for the outcome to remain useful? For a lead, it might be the question, the urgency, the relevant service, and the next promised action. For an article, it might be the audience, the problem, the search intent, the evidence, and the call to action. For a digital product, it might be the customer's purchase status, the current file, and the delivery instructions. Put those details in a simple table. Use columns for step, tool, information entered, repeated entry, failure risk, and next action. That's enough. You don't need a process management platform to discover a process problem. Buying one before you understand the path can create another interface task. Once you can see the path, ask the question that prevents a lot of confusion. Where does this business decide what is true? That's the second move. For each important category of information, choose one authoritative location, not one tool for everything. That would be the wrong lesson. You can keep a specialized email platform, a focused design application, a payment processor, and a content management system. Specialized tools can be worth keeping when they do their jobs well. The issue is not the number of tools. It's the number of places where meaning can drift. Customer facts might have one home. Content status might have one home. Current product files might have one home. Operating decisions might have one short decision log. The project board can show that a product is ready, while the actual files stay in a clearly named folder. The email platform can send a message, while the customer record remains the place where the relationship history is maintained. Here's a test. If two places disagree, which one wins? Be honest. Do you know? Or do you open both tabs and compare them? If you usually check both, you've found a design problem, not a character flaw, not proof that you need more discipline. A design problem. Choose the source of truth based on where the information is created, how often it changes, and who needs to act on it. Then let the other systems reference that source instead of competing with it. The goal is to stop being the human synchronization layer. Small naming habits matter here too. A file called Final New Version 2 is not a source of truth. It's a future question. A file with a clear product name, status, and date is easier to trust. A task called follow-up is weak. A task that says reply to website visitor about the beginner automation guide with the relevant link attached is much stronger. Bid systems preserve meaning. They don't force you to remember what a vague label was supposed to mean 3 days later. That's leverage too. Not flashy leverage, maybe, but every bit is real. And this is where automation can make the mess worse. A form says interested. The automation creates a test called follow-up. The task lands in a queue with no product link, no deadline, and no clue what the person actually wanted. The automation succeeded technically and failed operationally. Before you connect 5 applications, define 4 things. Who owns the step? What is the input? What should the output contain? And what happens when the normal pattern breaks? Those 4 questions turn automation from a wish into a controlled handoff. Take a simple lead workflow. The owner is you. The input is a completed form with a name, an email address, a question, and permission to receive a reply. The output is a task with that information attached, placed in the right queue. The exception is a missing email, an unclear question, or a request outside your service. That submission should go somewhere visible for review, not disappear into a failed automation log. That gives you a stable pattern. Trigger, transformation, exception. The form submission is the trigger. Turning it into a structured task is the transformation. Sending incomplete or unusual submissions to a review queue is the exception. You can test that pattern manually for a week. Seriously. If the steps stay consistent, connect the tools. If the process changes every other day, keep it visible and manual until you learn what should actually be standardized. A manual process can be inefficient, but at least it gives you information. An unstable automation can hide the information while repeating the mistake. The same principle applies to content. Give the workflow a brief containing the audience, problem, search intent, evidence needed, and next action. An AI tool can transform that brief into an outline or first draft. That is useful. But the review still needs an owner and a quality check. Is the claim accurate? Is the advice useful? Does it answer the reader's actual question? Automation can reduce mechanical work It should not quietly remove judgment where judgment is the value. If your authority comes from accuracy, relevance, and useful decisions, those parts need a deliberate review. Faster is not automatically better if the output requires a correction loop afterward. Let's walk through a second example. Delivering a small digital product. A customer pays. The payment system records the transaction. An email sends a download link. A folder contains the files. A support message arrives because the link is old. The wrong version was uploaded, or the customer can't tell which file to open. The payment system may be working perfectly, the email may be working perfectly, the folder may be working perfectly, but if the delivery link, file version, and customer instructions are maintained separately, the customer experiences one broken journey. That's the useful perspective. The customer doesn't care which internal tool succeeded. They care whether the promised value arrived clearly. So give the product one current file location, one delivery instruction, and one simple way to verify that a purchase was fulfilled. You may still use several tools behind the scenes. The customer should not have to navigate your internal architecture. Now let's turn this into something you can do this week. Give yourself 30 minutes. For the first 10, choose one customer outcome and write every step from beginning to end. Capture reality. Don't improve it yet. If you normally lose a note, open 3 tabs or ask yourself what happened last time. Put that in the process. For the next 10 minutes, mark every handoff. Then score each one from 1 to 5 for frequency, error cost, and customer impact. A handoff that happens once a month may not deserve attention. A handoff that happens 6 times a day and occasionally sends the wrong file probably does. For the final 10 minutes, choose one action. Remove the handoff if it's unnecessary. Simplify it if 2 tools are doing nearly the same job. Centralize the information if you're checking multiple places. Or automate it if the owner, input, output, and exception path are clear. Notice the order. Remove, simplify, centralize, then automate. Most people start at the end because automation sounds exciting. But the highest leverage improvement might be deleting a status field nobody uses, retiring a duplicate spreadsheet, or putting the customer's question directly inside the task instead of asking yourself to remember it. And don't turn this into a crusade against tools. Keep the specialized tools that provide real value. A focused design application, a reliable payment system, or a strong email platform may be exactly right for your business. The question isn't how do I use fewer applications? The better question is how do I create fewer unnecessary transitions? Let's connect the dots. Follow one real customer outcome and mark every transfer, repeated entry, decision, and search. Decide where each important category of information is authoritative. Then stabilize the handoff with a clear owner, input, output, and exception path before you automate it. That sequence can make a one-person business feel coordinated without making it rigid. You're not trying to eliminate flexibility. You're trying to protect the context that makes flexibility useful. The deeper question is not whether you're working hard. You probably are. It's whether your effort is arriving intact at the point where it creates value. If every handoff asks you to remember, retype, interpret, or reconcile something, part of your work is maintaining the distance between systems. Before your next work session, circle one handoff you perform every day. Remove it or make it impossible to misunderstand. Then notice how much attention comes back. That's the practical meaning of leverage here. Not adding another product, platform, or hour to the day, but allowing more of your existing effort to reach the customer. So which handoff would disappear if you redesign the process from the customer's perspective? Not which tool would you buy, not which feature would you turn on, which transition would no longer be necessary. Start there. If this gave you a clear way to think about your business systems, subscribe to the show. I share practical ideas for building income, independence, authority and leverage without making the work more complicated than it needs to be. Well, that's enough to think about for today. Appreciate you spending a few minutes with me. I'll catch you in the next one.